That plant over there is fennel. It smells like licorice. Yeah. So Charlie's hanging out with me in the front garden. I know it's been a while since I've really recorded progress of my plants like I should. I'm just tired, you know? I'm just kind of in that phase where I'm getting through things. Just busy with work and school and life. No, you cannot eat tallow tree leaves. Don't do that. So these fennel plants is what he was kind of hanging around. And you can see they're starting to flower. This is the same one that we've had for over 2 years now. And it just keeps seeding out and creating all these baby fennel plants, which is fine because even though most of the people in my family don't like fennel, at least fresh, it can be boiled in water and then dehydrated or freeze dried, and when you do that it doesn't have a licorice flavor. I personally love the flavor of fennel and I like licorice, so it's just one of my favorite plants because it's so amazing. But it looks, I know it didn't look like rain 5 seconds ago and now the sky is insanely gray. Yeah, so this is how dark our sky is, and it wasn't. It's been threatening to rain, but it hasn't yet, but I think it's coming after all. Yeah, and then over here it's still really clear and pretty. So the geese really like the fennel, and that's still a positive. So this will not go to waste because I'll use it. I just have to have time to process it, which lately I don't. It actually doesn't taste just like licorice. The inside pulp of it's like really watery, kind of like a watermelon with a slight licorice flavor, honestly, instead of watermelon. So I don't know how to explain it. You just have to try bulbing fennel. It's also called Florence fennel. Now this is the potato plant, and it's really what I wanted to show off because there's actually different stages of potatoes growing all throughout here. Like this is one that's barely starting to sprout, which is really exciting because if I come over to this side, this is where he planted both potatoes and watermelons, and I know they're very strange to grow together, but there is a reason to my madness. One, this is a raised bed that we recently made out of our drums. There are food grade barrels. What's a little raised bed? That's a big raised bed over there, yeah. And so we planted the potatoes, which we knew would grow up like the nightshade. Last time I tried growing potatoes, that did not grow very well at all. This time, the buttercup, yep. Kind of getting it right over the lens. There's a little too close. And so this time they're doing really well. I don't know how many tubers we'll get. Last time the temperature fluctuated a lot, so the top part froze before it should have because it just suddenly got really cold after being in the 80s. Now it's been consistently 80, high 80, like 88, 89, and low 90s, sometimes mid to high 90s depending on where you are at the yard. This area is a little more shaded, so it probably stays like 90 max just because the tree's right above it. But like 100 degrees. It is hot, but I mean it's cooler under the shade, yeah. So the cool thing about this is I've actually never seen a potato flower in person until today. And I'm really excited. I actually was looking at these plants last night because my husband heard about the blacklight trick and he wanted to come out here and shine his blacklight on them and check them for tomato hornworms or tobacco hornworms. Both kind of attack all sorts of plants, but especially you can find them on tomatoes and potatoes from what I hear. And you can tell the difference by the color spots on them. I'm not that great at telling the difference. I think one has more greenish yellow spots and one has black spots or something like that. But the really cool thing is I get to see these really cool flowers, and it actually looks like, yes, there are some damage, even though we didn't see any worms the other day, because there are some flowers missing that did not fall anywhere and some defoliation. But at the same time, these plants actually look fairly healthy and doing really well considering potatoes like cooler weather. Now this is a gold variety potato, so it is a really nice yellow color on the inside. The mashed potatoes have a golden hint. They almost taste like they have butter, right? Like it's a really buttery potato. Now, these are the flowers, and they actually produce fruit, and the fruit can look like tomatoes, but if you eat it, you could get really sick. These flowers will produce true seeds for potatoes. They don't look like the potato tubes you're used to. They actually look like a seed inside of them. And so here's kind of up close the fruit starting to develop. But again, that can make you incredibly sick. So I've warned my children multiple times. We keep our dog away from here and make sure to keep the birds in the backyard and not up front near the potatoes. So here are all the flowers and all the flowering stalks. And all of these, like this potato actually pushed above ground. And we probably just didn't plant it deep enough. I hear that you're supposed to hill up soil around the potatoes, and I just haven't done that like I'm supposed to. And the soil's actually really compacted from it being so dry the last couple of days. So that's something I need to work on, is kind of hilling everything up more. But that was the potato that this plant's growing from, and all of these are coming off the eyes. And actually, if you look right here, these will produce more of these. Those will come up from those eyes of the potatoes. And so right here in the center is where we have both of the watermelon plants planted. And it's like this in every bucket where the potatoes are. Except I think I actually see them in every bucket. Yeah, I was gonna say I thought we lost one, but it looks like they're all doing fairly well, just kind of shaded out. And here, this potato is not growing as much. Again, one's kind of pushed out of the ground. This one I hilled up earlier, but I thought it would be cool to show you guys that the inside actually almost looks like a rotten potato. It's just where it's broken down over time, because that potato, when it's growing as a plant, it provides nutrients for the foliage. So it will slowly break down until it goes through the process of growing and begins to put tubers back in the ground to prepare to produce the next generation. But also the tubers, what they do is they provide nutrients for the plants so that they can grow, which is really cool. And that's the part that we get to eat and we get nutrients from. Yeah, it's starting to rain out here. It figures that the one time I finally get a chance to get out here and really look at everything, it starts to rain. So, but I'm pretty impressed with all of these potatoes, I must say. And then these flowers are just so cool. I've never seen anything like this. It's totally different than growing tomatoes. And I know that they're different parts of the nightshade family, so obviously it was going to be different. But these flowers are not what I expected. I honestly thought the flowers would look more like tomato flowers, and yet they don't. These are actually really delicate and really pretty flowers. And then here's one of our watermelons that looks like it's actually starting to vine, which is pretty cool. And you can see our blackberries taking off over here too. So everything's still growing fairly well together, but I did like putting them into these barrels that we cut up, just so we didn't have to dig underground to try and find the potatoes. They're kind of hopefully just contained in these barrels. The biggest issue that we're having is that the potatoes are pushing up. We're definitely going to have to cover those, because green potatoes can actually make you pretty sick. And the more they're exposed to the sun, the greener they get. So, and I know people are going to say it's going to take at least a pound of green potatoes to make you sick. Well, guess what, guys? I could probably eat like 4 pounds of potatoes in one sitting. So it's just the truth. Potatoes are my favorite food, whether they're fries. Oh, look at that. Is that the peach tea rose? It's beautiful. Yeah. We could make some more tea out of these. Yeah. You may not like the taste of it. Yes, but if you eat them like without any sweetener or anything, they really taste like perfume, but bitter perfume. It's better as a tea, but it's still kind of perfumey depending on which rose you eat.
I don't taste any flavor.
You don't tell you eating it.
I'm licking it.
You're licking the rose. That's funny. Yes, those are peach tea roses. They're edible. That's what I make the rose tea out of inside the house on the tea shelf.
Here's your tea flowers.
Thank you. So the rain looks like it's gonna hold off a little bit because there are a couple of things. Charlie, will you hold these flowers for me, sweetheart? That I really wanted to show off today. And one of those things is this turnip. So this is actually the flowering stalk of one of the turnips that I grew this winter. And you can kind of see that the turnip is much smaller now, and that's because all the nutrients have been sucked out of it to form this flower stalk so that the flowers can produce seed. Oh look, there's a spider. Come on. For the next generation of this plant, which is really cool.
Edible flowers.
Another thing that I really wanted to show off, and I actually probably need to make a separate video of this so it doesn't kind of get lost in all of the other footage.
Great.
And yeah, it's the grapes. Look, they're baby grapes.
That's the biggest grape.
Yeah, just don't eat them yet because they're still really bitter. It takes months for grapes to finish producing. But these are the tiny grapes, the baby grapes I showed a while ago. There's little clusters. They're turning into these larger grapes. And actually, here's a bunch of smaller grapes.
These are the first ever grapes that are our best ones.
Yeah, these are a Fry Muscadine cross, so they have a really thick outer skin.
What's muscadine?
Oh, muscadine is a really big family of grapes that especially grows here in the south. Remember that muscadine jelly that we used to get? So you can see they're just grapes of all different sizes. And now these are not supposed to grow on the ground. You need airflow. We were not expecting them to flower.
Those are the big ones.
These are really cool. So I'm just excited to see grapes growing, whether we're able to harvest or not. I hope we are. The picture on...
They just died.
No, they didn't die. I cut the grapes over there on the other side out because they were taking over my blackberry plants, and those had a substantial amount of grapes, and I still cut that way back. I'm going to plant it somewhere else, and maybe we'll just get grapes from it next year.
Can you hold these?
No, baby. I cannot hold and do all this. You're going to have to hold your own flowers this time.
Your flowers.
So you can kind of see, well, you picked them though. All of the flowers in this area. These are all the wildflowers that my son planted when we built this bed. They are gorgeous. Some of them, like the bachelor buttons, they took over 2 years to grow. So that's really cool. And you can see they're starting to dry up, and I'll probably collect seeds from these. And then these are just gorgeous. These are the rose flowers that Charlie's obsessing over here because they're so pretty. And then right behind that are all of the bee balm. This is the same bee balm that I've made videos about in previous years. You can see some of them are actually finished and going to seed now. And some of these, look at this, has not even opened up all the way, and it'll continue to come out. So here are just several different stages of flowers, and this is what it looks like when it's in full bloom. I understand. I got stung the other day. I got stung on my foot the other day, and I think it was a wasp, not a bee. I didn't get a good look of it before it flew off, but it was in by my okra, and I accidentally stepped on it. I was in socks. It did not feel good at all, but I do not blame you for not wanting to get stung, bub. So yeah, these are pretty. I mean, I'm loving these bee balm flowers. I'm letting kind of all of the pollinators have some right now because I have so many jars of them. But then later in the season, and who knows, maybe in a couple of days, I'll feel like coming out here and clipping them off. But I probably need to separate this bee balm so that it can, for one, I use a lot of it. And if you don't know, it's a mint family plant, so it can just take over everything. And I need to kind of separate it so it's a little bit further away from the rose because it kind of encroached on it. You never think that this was just a little tiny single stem plant when I bought it. And then I'm going to separate and plant it probably over here in this area that's covered in buttercups because we have way too many buttercups, and I've been slowly taking them out of the garden and composting them, but there's still quite a few that need to go because they just take over everything, as you can see in this area that really needs to be weeded. And look at the chamomile. I missed the opportunity to harvest a lot of these flowers, and they've all pretty much dried. So they'll produce seeds, and just like that, you see how they're just kind of dispersing. They're going to be everywhere. So in a couple of weeks, we'll have a ton of chamomile that I'll actually be able to harvest, since I just got caught up in the moment with work and school and just forgot about it altogether. I'm training at a new job, which I really enjoy so far, but it's just taking a lot of my focus right now. So, man, my allergies.
What's your allergy? What are you allergic to?
Excuse me. I don't think that's necessarily that I'm allergic. It's just that I'm going around touching and smelling all of these mints and flowers. And I think it's just giving me the sniffles. Oh my goodness. So, like, sneezy, kind of, my nose is running a little bit. Oh goodness. Yeah, so if you have a very pretty flower garden, just be aware if you have any kind of springtime allergies, or you're like me.
TV outside where
It's really old. I think it stopped working. It's like 40 years old. I know. So right here is where we have a lot of these onions, which I've actually come through and cut them a lot. They're chives, but right here looks like some poison ivy. So all of these onions that are touching it actually have to be cut away, because obviously you can't eat something that's touched poison ivy. And then I'll have to pull this out, but I need long sleeves because I'm highly allergic.
Poison ivy.
It is. That's what it looks like right there in between it. I would not touch that.
Delicious onion.
Yeah, but don't touch the onions right here, because you see this plant? That's awful. And I really want to get it pulled out and maybe dig up the root, because it looks like more basil's coming up down there. Oh yeah, the onion does smell good, but I think I'm done smelling stuff for a while, because... So there's just one more thing that I want to show, and I'm trying to make it quick because it's already sprinkling on me and my phone. And also, man, my nose is super sniffly right now. So over here is where I actually planted those little tiny southern high bush blueberries last year. And this year one produced berries, but the birds have eaten most of them. But I just wanted to show, like, this is what a blueberry looks like at first, and then it turns pinkish red, and then it turns blue and ripens. But since the birds have eaten all of them, and they're still super astringent and bitter right now, we're not going to get any blueberries this year, and we'll probably pull these up and make a little raised bed. No, sir. Near the house. We can cut them up and put them into something inside.
I'm eating them raw.
The raw chives, they're good?
Yeah.
Good. And I just think, we thought they were going to be like 4 foot high and wide, but so far they're not growing very big. I mean, it could just be that I don't know what I'm doing, and it could be that they're just not nearly as large, and they're excuse me, sorry, my nose is super runny from all of the plants and flowers. That is a thistle, a milk thistle. And so, it could be that they're a dwarf variety and just mislabeled because I bought them from the grocery store. And it could be that I just don't know how to properly take care of blueberries, which I've been doing a bunch of research on it. But a large portion of blueberries grow farther north, and we're right on the Gulf Coast in southeast Texas. So while some people have blueberries, it's just not very common to see them around here. And everyone I know down here that grows blueberries either lives slightly further north than we do, in just like zone 8 or 7, or they are from a different area and just have a lot more experience than I do. But it would be cool to eventually get them to grow and produce good amount of blueberries, but probably just learn more myself, so I actually know how to properly take care of them, which I don't.
Can you hold these now?
Thank you.
You're welcome for your onion.
Thank you for the onions. And here, look down there, you see some more potatoes sprouting up.
I'm not allergic to.
And then these are the calendula, those pot marigolds, and we've actually harvested quite a bit, but they're looking kind of sad. But I do see a bunch of baby plates coming up where they've seeded, so maybe we'll have another shot at getting some more of these. And I have a bunch inside that I started, but I need to separate them out and let them grow a little longer.
These?
Yeah, where I have like 50 of them. I got this, I don't remember, it was like a cream or golden mix of them, so it has different color, like yellows, oranges, beiges, and whites, I
you
think.
got multiple colors.
Yeah, it would be really cool to see what we get out of that mix.
You can only have, like,
And then the chocolate mint, you can see it's just kind of taking over everything. And also this is the tallow tree that we have to keep trimming back. But I'm just not ready to cut it down. I really don't want to yet, so that's why we continuously have to trim it back
doesn't
every year.
smell like chocolate mint.
It does. It's amazing.
Can you make chocolate out of this?
I wouldn't say no. It tastes more like a sweeter peppermint.
Ooh, we can
But-
make peppermint.
It smells like an Angie's mint. Ugh.
Is that poison ivy that's next to you?
No, I don't know what that is. So, there's still a lot to do out here, but
I'm not allergic to poison ivy.
I bet you are. You break out just when we cut the grass. I'm very, very tired this week. I think doing too much is finally catching up to me, and I just need a little bit of rest. But also, it's been incredibly hot, so unfortunately, a lot of my focus tomorrow is going to be processing some meat birds. We found a family about an hour from us who also has a fairly good amount of kids, and because of that, they had a ton of meat chickens that they just couldn't process. And we were so blessed to be able to drive up there and purchase those birds for $5 a piece. So the first time we purchased 28 birds, and then the second we purchased an additional 21. And the 21 we got for $100. It was such a good deal for us. We didn't have to do the work. It kind of helped them make back some of the feed costs from their 4-H project, but also really helped our family.
4-H project.
That's like when you raise and show your rabbits or chickens. Your project's just whatever you choose to do for 4-H. And sometimes that doesn't even have to do with animals. Like they have projects about how to learn how to be a business person or entrepreneur, like teaching. There's so many different things you can do. They even have cooking classes.
I don't want to.
I know you don't want to cook. I'm not gonna make you. But so it just really worked out for us, but unfortunately that means my garden's really gonna get neglected because I have to process those. I spent last week left unattended, like left alone, not being cared for. So I paused it and walked across the yard because these are our salt and pepper cucumbers, and this is about the size I picked them yesterday, and I got so many. I made a whole quart jar of fridge pickles for my youngest son, and they're just producing like crazy. They're called salt and pepper cucumbers because they're white cucumbers and the spines on them are black, so it looks like little sprinkles of pepper, which is really cool. And they're just everywhere. They do have a tendency to turn yellow when it gets warmer, but I noticed like the yellow ones are actually sweeter, and the white ones, if they're too white, like they're not quite big enough, they're a little more bitter. It's a blockier cucumber, but we've tried slicing them to make pickles and also just picking them smaller and doing it like a whole pickle, almost like a gherkin sized pickle. And we haven't tried those yet, but the slices were absolutely amazing. The fresh cucumber, I'm not a big fan of cucumbers, and this is the best cucumber I have by far that I've ever had. It is sweet and amazing. I will always grow the salt and pepper cucumber. I am so excited to actually get to record more about it as I learn more about it, because I had such a hard time finding like really in-depth videos on it. Get that. Isn't that amazing? It really is. Just absolutely amazing to look at and see. And then in here, our onions are finally bulbing some. And then where all our squash was, it really did not do well the squash bugs were atrocious. And while we got a ton of squash, they didn't stay up for even half. They didn't even make it into summer. Okay, they're all dead. I do have some more squash plants growing inside, but I'm still seeing both squash bugs and squash vine borers everywhere. And I'm really amazed that my cucumbers are still alive with all of this going on. But the plan was, even though yes, it needs to be weeded out. Look, I even have a baby tallow tree growing in here. These things are just, they grow everywhere. So these are those Clemson spineless okra, but they're a variety called heavy hitter. So they're supposed to produce upwards of 250 pods per plant per season. And I can see 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then 2 more over there. So there are 13 for sure that are doing pretty well. 2 are fairly small. But what I really wanted to show is all of these. So these are where the flowers are produced at. And I miss showing the flower. I do have previous videos that do show okra flowers. They're related to a hibiscus, which is really cool. But one of the flowers has already produced this little teeny tiny okra, which was here yesterday. And I was so excited to come out and show off that we actually have our first baby okra of the season. And if you know okra, the pods grow extremely fast. So I'm surprised that it's still fairly small. But I would have to say by this weekend, hopefully I don't forget about the pod. When I come home from work and I remember to come check it out. Because we do have a church event to attend on Saturday night, way away from home. Your aunt and uncle invited us out by their house to their church. I don't know exactly what it is. I don't know if it's like an end of school event or what, but they're doing food and drinks and games from 6 to 10 Saturday. So we're going to go after I get off work.
Wait, when do you get off of work?
It really just depends on what the hospital needs. It could be 6:30 at night. It could be 3. But we'll have to leave. You'll have to be dressed and ready before I get home. So just be prepared. So yeah, this okra I'm pretty excited about. And considering how small this plant is for it already be producing. Oops, I just stepped on one of my plants. But it didn't break, so. There we go. I'm really excited that with the size it is, it's already producing pods. So far it's living up to its name. And I have a ton more plants because I already seeded a bunch of burgundy okra. And today's Wednesday, so Thursday, Friday, Saturday. 3 days. Yes, I had to count, guys. My brain's broken. Feels broken. I feel broken. So you can see the stalks just kind of hanging out here. I need to chop this down. We already harvested all the sunflowers and their seeds. I'm really excited about this because I thought this died due to the vine borers, but I guess it re-rooted somewhere and now it's producing little tiny melons. And there's a couple of them. So I'm hoping we'll still get melons. But I know that there's a big chance that we won't. And you can see the Mayflowers have already opened and fallen off a couple of times. But this is where it re-rooted right down in here. And then this is where it was originally rooted. And you can see there's a lot of damage from the vine borers. It's just absolutely atrocious. And the plant looks awful. It's just like pure pulp and sawdust in a lot of places. But the fact that it created roots somewhere else, which I didn't think that melons could do. So I suppose I was wrong on that. It may actually stand a chance. And then you can see where all of our lettuce are kind of going to seed over here. And I'm really excited about that. Even though I have a ton of seeds, I do like saving seeds from my own garden just because they grow in our specific climate conditions. So over a few generations, we get seeds that are kind of specific to us in our location, which is really cool. So I'm excited about these. Those are their Cimarron heirloom lettuce that I grew. And it seems this year I've actually found quite a few plants that I said will absolutely forever have a place in our garden because they just did so incredibly well. So I'm really glad to be finding plants that work well for us. And then here are blackberries. We have some here and some here, and over here, if you've been with us for a little while, you know that we actually used to have like a big composting fence that was covered in this giant muscadine vine. And I cut that muscadine vine way far back down to like only 1.5 feet high. And I'm actually going to transplant it way over here by this fence and let it grow over to shade out for the animals, because I had no idea that muscadines just took up so much room. I knew that they would grow 20 feet, but yeah, it did in like 2 months once spring hit, and it's just way too much. You can see it started kind of vining over here. It was choking out all my plants, both above and below ground. I did not get all the roots out, so I know there's a huge chance it'll grow back. Lesson learned. I definitely think that growing them kind of up above, overhead, would be the best option, but I'm not certain. Oh my gosh, all the chickens are out. What are they doing? They're so tiny. They're gonna hide in your banana plants. That's funny. Well, I don't know why. It's still kind of sprinkling, but the sun's also beating down at the same time. So I think I'm just gonna go inside for a while until this passes. But you can see I definitely have my work cut out for me in this garden with the weeding and everything else. So I'm gonna have to start coming out here really early in the morning to avoid both the sun and the late night mosquitoes. So thank you guys for kind of walking around and seeing everything that's happening in the garden. I know that I have just not done the best about updating, but I'm excited to try and kind of get some more content out there again and show off the garden. Yeah, I'm not big on the hot weather either. I'm definitely not. Yeah, it's not just warm, it's like blazing already. It's going to be a very miserable summer. But I appreciate everyone kind of taking time to check out our garden and all the changes. I'm definitely most excited about those potato flowers because for one, I can't believe our potatoes are actually doing well. But for two, I've never seen a potato flower in person before, so that's really cool for me. I don't know what you guys think. Probably that I'm annoying always showing you my plants. But, thanks for checking out my garden with me.